What's up, great students? How's everyone doing tonight? Did I say students? That was a test for me. Shoot. What's up, Grace Youth? Yes, okay. I'm on top of it. I'm gonna never say that word again, and if I do, you guys can come up with some severe punishment because that's out with the old, in with the new. Tonight at Youth, I am joined by my lovely wife, Courtney. Can everyone give her a nice Grace Youth welcome?
Hello.
Glad you're here.
Oh, thanks.
Glad you're here tonight. We're missing one member of our family. As you guys know, we have an awesome son named Liam, and I think we have a picture of him. You guys have, oh, this is from church this morning. Isn't this cute? This is, literally someone took this while we were walking down the hallway. He likes to hold hands, and then when I try to like walk away without holding his hand,
He freaks out.
he freaks out and screams. So we're like, whatever you want, dude. Like, we're just going to give you what you want. And I think is there a picture of us from last summer? I just have to show this picture. I think this is the greatest picture of the two of us that exists. I feel like we look great.
We do. Liam kind of looks like an old man, but
He was kind of low-key ugly in that phase, but he grew out of it. That's terrible. He got a lot cuter.
True.
He got a lot cuter. He just look at the hair and like he didn't have his teeth yet, so it's all good. It's all good.
He just looks like a little old man. It's fine.
So Liam is
We did not bring him.
We did not bring him. He's a little over a year and a half. He's in a really fun stage right now, though. So we tell our dog to come, right, like any dog. But when my dog doesn't listen, I elevate it and I say, Lincoln, heel. That's like, I get like serious voice, and then like the dog comes over. So apparently Liam has listened to this and he's learned from it. So check out this video. This is just from like 2 days ago.
You better go find him. Oh.
You say heel? So yeah, that's him saying heel, Dad. Isn't that cute, right? So
It's like a regular occurrence in our house now. Like, if I'm not, like the other night, I didn't come up when they did bath time, and from the stairs I hear, heel, Mom, heel. And I'm like, no, you do not own me.
And of course, I tell him that's really disrespectful to say about his mom, to heel.
he
but I laugh
laughs.
at it. And if you laugh at a baby, they will do it again. So that's kind of where we're at right now. He's in a fun stage. He's not here tonight, though.
He's with Grandma and Grandpa,
But I wanted
living his best life.
Courtney to join me, and the middle schoolers get Sean and Jess together tonight. We are wrapping up this XOXO series. I don't know if you're excited about that or you're disappointed. Maybe you feel like you've gotten enough. Maybe you feel like you could just have like many, many more weeks. This is the last week of it. We've talked about love. We talked about dating. We've had all kinds of different topics. Tonight, we are wrapping up this series by having a conversation around the topic of sex, right? You probably could guess it. Oh no, here it comes. But to ease into it, we are going to answer some of your questions that you sent in the last couple weeks first, and then we'll progress as the night goes on. But here's what I hope. This is going to be really, really helpful for you. It's not going to be inappropriate. We'll try to keep it as like the least amount of weird as possible. But I think it's going to be really, really helpful. So we're going to just start, though, with a couple of your questions, and then we're going to progress as the night goes on. And so the first question that someone sent in, then you posted something like, hey, what questions do you have for Courtney and Billy or Sean and Jess? First question, pretty obvious, was this. It was, how did you guys meet? How did you guys meet? And I will let Courtney answer that a little bit. I did tell them last week about the Facebook post.
Oh, okay.
And I told them
You slid
that you
into
never,
my Facebook DMs, which is really like.
and
the
you never
Facebook.
liked it.
Nope.
To this day.
It's okay.
And I told them about the Dairy Queen date that didn't happen. So this is more like how we met and whatever. So
When I said no,
you said maybe.
I said maybe. Don't do that. Yeah, so we met at school in college. We both went to Grace College out in Indiana and met there. We were in some scholarship program that sounds a lot smarter than it actually was. And met there, ran in the same friend group all year. I dared him to jump in the lake. He did it. It was funny.
Do you guys ever do the thing with friends, some variation where like you have to count to 3 and then say a number? And if the number's the same, the person like loses the bet or the dare? We did that together, and the dare was me jumping in a lake
And
Which
I
that
lied.
could tell, you could tell she liked me if she was like doing that sort of stuff to me. She lied.
I
And
did.
because I'm a man of honor, I jumped in that lake. Okay, so that was like a first sign of my commitment to her. But then I found out later on she actually lied about the number.
I did.
Somebody else like kind of like cued her in on the number. I don't know. It was shady.
It was bad. Anyway, so we started dating our freshman year, and April of freshman year, and then got engaged September of junior year.
Yep.
And then got married in between our junior and senior years of college, which my parents were all for because you get like extra scholarship money and stuff. So as soon as they found that out, they
Yes.
were like, "Go for it, sure, cheaper
Yes.
college."
And you don't have to pay for housing anymore
Yeah.
at the college. You just get
That's
your
why
own.
we got married, obviously. Just kidding. So we've been married 10 years this summer.
Yes.
So that means we've been
Yeah.
we've been together like 12-ish years.
Yeah.
Wow, we're old.
Yep, we're getting up there. So
We
yeah,
are.
that's the story. That's how we met.
I
And
said maybe to a Dairy Queen date, but obviously he filled you in.
it
on
all
that.
worked out in the
It's
end.
fine.
It all worked out in the end. I got the girl, locked her down, still to this day. So I swore I wouldn't say I wouldn't use the phrase, and I'm not going to refer to her as baby mama, but she is now the mother of my child. So like everything worked out for me in the end is what I'm saying. Like it's all good, and she gets to be married to me, which isn't that bad. So it all worked out.
You
So the
still have
question
baby mama,
that
so.
someone else asked, there's like two questions, they're kind of similar, so we're going to put them both up here. This is a good question. So someone asked, how do you know your relationship is from God? I think this slide says how you know, but you get the point. How do you know your relationship is from God? And then how do you know someone is the right person to marry? So I guess when it came to us and we were dating and things progressed, how did you know that this was the right thing? It was, this is God's plan for us. How did you figure that out?
Billy was my first and only boyfriend. I didn't date in high school, and
Not because you weren't pretty.
right. I mean, like, sure, yeah. I was kind of a dweeb. It's fine. I went to Christian school. You'll understand here soon. And so he was my first boyfriend, and as we started dating, people were like, yeah, you should. Like, he's great, you're great, whatever, that kind of stuff. And then as we got farther into the relationship and started talking about what comes next or if something comes next, we both had adults at the time, like youth group leaders, whatever, who were pouring into us and who were encouraging us in that direction because they were involved in our relationship and then each of us individually. And so I had my mentor, she was like, no, I think like if you feel like this is somebody you can spend your life with, like I am seeing those things, like I'm seeing that in you and I'm seeing in that in both of you, and I feel like God would bless that. Like, so we had people who were pouring into us that way, who were agreeing with that, and then also just praying and asking God, like, what do you think? Like, how does this work? What's the plan for my life? That kind of things, and feeling at peace with that. I felt like I
Right.
was kind of rambling, but
No, it's good. It's great.
So we had adults pouring into us who were agreeing with us and encouraging us and whatnot. So I would say that's how we knew it was from God, and that's how we knew it was the right person to marry. I'm not really a like, oh my goodness, he's the only person in the entire world for me kind of person. I mean,
Do you
obviously
still
you
believe
are.
that to this day?
Obviously
or-
you are. But I'm just saying, like, it's not like if you don't run into your person, then you're never going to get, like, I don't believe that. But I do think that when you have people who are speaking into your life, that will be revealed to you. And if you are following God with your life, then that will be revealed to you as well.
Right. And if this person is like kind of mentor for you, so like an equivalent of like a group leader,
Yeah.
if they had told you, hey, I know you're like in love with this guy, but he's not the one. He's kind of a jerk. Like, how would you have taken that?
Not well. But
Because you liked me, or
yeah, because
okay.
I liked you. But I also really,
Right.
I really respected her, and both of our parents were on the same page as us too, which was super important.
Yeah.
He had to ask my dad before he could start dating me, sort of thing. And so both of our parents were also on the same page, which I felt like was super important for us too. And if anybody at any point had said something, I would have been livid. But I think ultimately, like, that would have been fine.
It would have carried some weight because
It would
this
have
person you
very much
trusted.
carried weight, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Courtney said I was her first and only boyfriend and relationship to this day. So
Yep.
good for me. Unfortunately, on my side, as a stupid high school guy, can't say that's necessarily the same story. So for me, Courtney was my last girlfriend.
We won't count.
And wait, who are you?
I'm just teasing.
Okay, I was like, I don't think there was anyone else. Okay,
I'm
she's
just
my
saying we
last
won't
girlfriend, but
count
wasn't my
before.
first girlfriend. So I think it was a combination for me of I grew up like getting out to college. I grew up. There's some maturing that needed to happen in my life, and you were the first girlfriend that I had that was like actually passionate about following Jesus, and that was a priority in your life. And I had finally kind of gotten my life together and was pursuing that too. And those sort of things, like that was a high priority. Before Courtney and I started dating, there was a girl out at Grace. She didn't go to Grace, but her grandma worked at this church that I was leading worship at, and her grandma tried to hook me up with
He
her.
played the guitar. A lot of people thought he was cute. A lot of girls thought he was
It's an easy in, you know, and so I met this girl, and the grandma like hooked us up on a date, and this is like we weren't a thing at all, and we went on a date together, and it was kind of fine, and then I kind of realized something changed in me because I could tell she didn't love Jesus. Like she wasn't about it. She was like, I'll go to church, but I'm not really that. She was kind of like, you're sort of like a weird Christian. You're kind of like into this thing more than I am. And so we had that conversation, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, where do you stand with this thing? And she kind of said, yeah, well, I'm not as into it as you are. And to me, then I was like, okay, well, then I'm not interested in this because my priorities have changed. And so that was like a turning point for me. I think that, okay, I'm not just looking for a relationship. I was looking for someone that loved God and was pursuing him. And then eventually, you know, this ended up happening. And between like people that we trusted that were saying, no, this seems like the right thing, and our parents both liked each of us, and all those things kind of added up together. So for a high schooler, we would say, like, get some wise counsel from a group leader, from your parents. Hey, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this girl? What do you think about this scenario? But be mature enough that if they tell you, hey, I don't think they're the one for you for this reason, this reason, that you'll actually listen to it and like receive that wisdom rather than just blowing it off because it's not what you want to hear. But we're gonna keep it moving. This is one for Courtney because you have some unique experience here that you can help the guys out. These two questions actually came in from real dudes that go to our church. They're similar questions. First one, how do I get a girl to like me back? And then the next one that was similar was, how do I get a girlfriend? So help the guys out. How do you get a girl to like you back? Yeah, good luck.
Right?
Good luck and God bless.
Good luck. I feel like one of the things that I appreciate and I still appreciate to this day, is that Billy is a gentleman and he buys me ice cream. And important.
I take you to Target.
You take me to Target. Always a good thing. But and his love for God shines through him. So I would say, like, you want a girlfriend, like, be the person that God has called you to be. So be the man that God has called you to be. Be a gentleman, be kind, be loving. Show that your relationship with Christ is important. Show that you treasure the girl. Don't be weird about it. Don't be creepy.
It's a fine line.
Right, yeah, very fine line.
And if you think you're on the wrong side of it, you probably are. So just course correct, okay? Make some changes.
But yeah, and I would say, like, I don't know, don't beat around the bush. I really think guys should make the first move. I'm very old-fashioned that way. So, like, make the first move.
I like it.
Take her to Target.
That's a big commitment in Wayne County. You got to drive 45 minutes to do that. That's a long
true.
car ride.
Don't do that. Go to Hartzler's first.
Okay, all right, good.
Then if it doesn't go well, quick 10-minute drive home.
I hope that helps out, gentlemen here. Okay, here's the next question, and now we're getting into like some more, just, I don't know if it's more serious or just specific questions. So someone asked this. They asked, why do some people attack, oh, wait, that's not it. Keep going. Wait, is that it? There it is. Why do some people attack dating when we as Christians are supposed to love? I thought that was a good question. Someone sent that in. And I think it's a great question, but I think it reveals maybe like a misconception about love. So let me like try to set the, say this as clearly as possible. When God says in the Bible you're supposed to love your neighbor, God is not saying date your neighbor. Does that make sense? Okay, like so when God says you should love your neighbor, that doesn't mean romantic love. That's not necessarily what that's indicating. So God can be pro-love, as in loving people, putting their needs above your own, and also might tell you, if you really listen to him and wise counsel, might tell you, maybe you shouldn't date right now. So basically what I mean by that is that loving people is not an equivalent to dating someone or whatever else that may be. So think about when the Bible talks about Christians should love. We're talking about sacrificial love, about giving of yourself for someone else, putting the needs of others above you. So you should love your friends. You should love your parents. You should love your teachers. You should love if you're a guy, you should show love to your guys that are friends. Girls should show love to your girls that are friends. Love is like universal. Romantic love is a certain type of love that I think God certainly celebrates, but don't connect those two. That would be my advice for you on that one. Don't just assume, okay, God says love, so I should date. No, God says love, so you should love. And if you're mature enough and if you've identified the right person, then sure, dating is an okay thing to do, but don't necessarily connect those two. Next question is this. How do I show affection when my love language is physical touch, but theirs isn't?
So you just defined love as choosing to put someone else's needs above your own. And so in this case, it would be showing love in the way that meets that person's love language. So
Are you guys familiar with love languages? Some of you know what those are? What are the
mine
five?
I only remember mine.
Well, what's yours?
Gifts.
I know it is. It's gifts. And acts of service.
What?
Acts of service.
Yeah, I love when he does the dishes. Seriously.
I'm actually better at dishes than she is
Truth.
now. Like I've really
The student has
stepped
become
up
the
my
master.
game.
But gifts, acts of service, physical touch, quality time, and
Anyone know?
which one?
Words of affirmation.
Thank you. I'm not good at that one.
So the point behind those
And
five
that's
things.
his, which is so bad.
Yeah, tell me nice things about me. That will make me feel loved. So the point of like love languages is like probably those five things. One of those, or maybe two of those, would kind of sum up basically what communicates love to you. So like you might say, I don't care about gifts at all, but when someone spends quality time with me, that really shows that they value me. So
He
that's like what a love language
appreciates
is.
Like not just like it's not random words of affirmation, but like affirming that he's doing his job well, or that something like has gone well, like just, and not because he's selfish about it, but because that's literally what like he values. So in this case, like find your the person that you're dating, whatever their love language is, meet them, like give that to them. That's how they feel loved. Like that's not a bad thing. Mine is gifts, but not flowers because I kill them. So ice cream and chocolate. But like I also, acts of service is a huge one for me, and quality time comes in pretty close under that. But yeah, so I would say meet them where they're at on that and show them love in that way, because part of loving is being selfless.
Yes, yeah. So I think part of that love language thing is like, if it means a lot to you for people to do like acts of service, then you probably will try to express love to people by doing acts of service.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes me feel loved, so that's obviously what makes them feel loved. But what you might find is that doesn't really communicate love to them as much, but words of affirmation is really, really important. So part of love is being selfless, like you said. It's putting someone else's needs above your own. So you would say, even though my default is to show acts of service, and I'm not really very good with words, if I really love someone, and this actually applies, again, friends, parents, whatever it may be, but in the dating context, I'm going to work at getting better at expressing my care for them through words, because I know that's what means a lot to them. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Okay, last question here before we kind of jump into the topic, and it sort of gets us into it. Someone asked this: at school, people keep talking about how far people have gone. Why does everyone seem so obsessed? I don't know if we won't do like a show of hands here, but I imagine if you play a sport, if you're in the locker room, if you're in the hallways, whatever, this topic probably comes up, not just here and there, but maybe potentially pretty often. And you might kind of wonder, okay, how do I navigate this? So here's what we're going to do tonight. I told you last week, I'm going to talk to you like young adults. Going to talk to you like you're a young adult because that's what you are. You're a young. You're a pretty young adult. You're very young-ish, but we're still going to talk to you like a young adult because we care about you and we want to be straightforward. But again, we're not going to be inappropriate. We're going to be super straightforward, and I want to help you to deconstruct, to dismantle some of the myths about this topic that you might believe, and to strongly believe and hold on to the truth about this topic, because God actually has a really, really awesome plan for this. And if you can catch hold of that, man, it's going to bless your life in huge ways. But if you believe one of these two myths, it's going to essentially keep you off track one way or the other. So what I want to do, I want to get into two different myths that I think that people tend to believe about sex and sexuality. And I think one of them is one that I can really relate with from my high school years, and the other one is one that Courtney can really relate with. And I bet you will find yourself maybe in one of the two camps yourself. So here's the first myth. And if you've taken notes, you know, feel free to write this down. Get out your notes app. Keep track of some of this stuff. But here's the first one. The first myth is that sex is God. That's the first myth. So when I think about like every word up there is capitalized, but imagine that's like a lowercase God. Basically, the idea that sex is the most important thing in the world. Nothing matters more than it. I should be consumed with it. Like every waking moment, I need to think about this thing. And maybe because of how much I think about it, or maybe because of some things that I'm doing, I'm even to the point where I can't stop thinking about it. And that's just normal because that's the world that we live in. That's the myth. Sex is God. When you believe this myth, you believe that sex is everything, and you become obsessed with it. But this is a myth. This isn't the truth about sex. It's not God at all. But when I was in high school, going to public school, it's not just because of public school. It's just because I am a sinful human, just like you guys. I hope I'm not worse than anyone else here. But especially 7th grade, 8th grade, started paying more attention to girls than I was before. Like 5th and 6th grade, it was like Pokemon, like nothing else mattered. And then 7th grade, there was a change, and I realized girls will not like me if this is my personality. I need to make some changes. I joined the football team
Just
for 1 year. I was trying to get some cred. That didn't go well at all, but that's just part of my story, you know. Every test is a part of your testimony. So that worked out in the end, 7th grade football. But I started to pay more attention to girls and realizing, okay, I need to make some changes so I'll be attractive to girls, that they would want to hang out with me. But then when the topic of sex came up, it was just like, again, you're in the locker room, you're with guys, you're like, that was just a common topic. And I would say I did not know enough probably at the time. I had not been informed well enough probably as a 7th, 8th, 9th grader to really know how to navigate that. And so what I did was I just kind of went along with the stream. Like, this is what all the other guys talk about. This is what I talk about. This is what seems to be the most important thing in the world. What's the most important thing in the world to me, as far as just being obsessed with not just sex, but like dating, relationships, and then obviously sex as well. And so that was just what everyone else was doing, and I kind of thought, all right, that's what I should do too. So I hope I'm not the only one that can relate with that. Maybe you can too, and you'd say, yeah, I've kind of been caught up in that world before of thinking this is the most important thing. I'm obsessed with it. And what commonly happens is, like, if that's kind of where you're at, and it's even easier for you today in 2022 than it was for me in 2005 with my flip phone and dial-up internet, which you don't even know what that is. I could not easily access the things that for you with your smartphone, right, is just like a click away. You could see a world of stuff if you wanted to. But when I was in 7th grade, this is like a little bit of transparency from your pastor here, this kid, Tyler Green, I hate this guy. To this day, I hate this guy. Tyler Green is terrible. This dude, Tyler Green, was like, hey, do you know if you Google this, you can see pictures of naked girls? I was in 7th grade, and I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So as a 7th grader, that was the first time I heard about this topic, pornography, and it was just like completely normal. I didn't really even know to process. That was a bad thing. I should stay away from that. And so at a very, very young age, that was introduced to me in my life, and I'm guessing with how technology has advanced and how easy access is, that for some of you, it was even earlier than 7th grade that someone in your school said, hey, do you know you could look this up or you could look that up? When you believe sex is God, you'll do whatever you can to seek it out and to go find it. So this is a myth that I certainly believed in high school, and I had to work through, and I had some mistakes and regrets in my life. Thankfully, not to the fullest extent, but some things even as we were going through the process of getting married that I had to say, hey, this is some stuff in my past because I fell into this myth and this mindset. So this is a myth. This is off track. This isn't the way God wants you to view this topic. But there's a second myth that I think probably you can definitely relate to in your high school years, and that's that sex is gross. So first myth is that it's God. The second myth is that sex is gross. Talk about that.
Like I said earlier, I grew up in Christian school and like preschool on up, and went to the same church and, whatever. And most of you, including him, would probably say that I led a very sheltered lifestyle. Like wasn't allowed to watch certain movies and wasn't allowed to go do certain things, wasn't allowed to go hang out with friends because my parents were very careful. And then in youth group, as was the trend, you talked about sex as if like you don't do it, but don't worry, it's for marriage. And I remember thinking in middle school and high school, like, yeah, that's disgusting. And why? Like, why? And because I went to Christian school was never, not because I went to Christian school, but because the environment and my Christian school, I would say, was not exposed in the right way to what sex is, and which is what our goal is here tonight, is to expose you in the right way. So in my mind, it was just gross and disgusting, and why would God do that? But the reality is that it isn't, but this myth was saying that it was dirty and that it was shameful, but don't worry, it's all for marriage. And so it was just a weird environment, and didn't think anything of it until I got to college, I think, and it became a little bit more of a like, oh, I'm understanding, because by that point I had mentors in my life and whatnot, who were great and awesome, and but yeah.
So this myth, I think, gets perpetuated because churches don't always do a great job of talking about this topic. And so because if we don't do a great job of talking about it, and all you hear from church is, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. God says no, God says no, God says no. You'll begin to believe the myth that, okay, something must be wrong with sex. Sex must be something that's dirty. I should be ashamed of the fact that maybe I feel like, man, I want to be with someone like that someday. And I should be ashamed of the fact that I'm a person that has sexuality. And that leads to, it's kind of oppressive, I think, on people. And maybe that's something that you've felt before in your life. Go ahead, talk about that.
I grew up in the world of like, you don't date until you're married sort of idea, which is not possible. And so I think like I didn't even realize like what it looked like to have like even a healthy dating relationship was not always taught in church or talked about among my, like in my grace group or my youth group or whatever. So it was like, what? There's a whole thing. I can't remember what it's called. But it was like literally like, you don't date until you're married.
Like courting?
Yes.
I Kiss Dating Goodbye.
That one.
Yeah.
I read that book. I like signed the back of it and everything.
And yet
Here we are today.
Look at us. We made
but
it.
that was the world that I grew up in. Not saying that was wrong, okay? My parents are great. I think that God brought me, like I was exactly where I needed to be and all that stuff. It just wasn't like, that's not what I would want for you, and that's not what I want for my own kids, because I want to be able to like, I think there's a healthy balance between our two worlds, which is again what we're talking about.
So 2 ends of the spectrum. One is obsessed, sex is God. The other is ashamed, sex is gross. What's the reality? What does God actually say about this topic, and how should we kind of live out these truths in our lives? So myth number 1, sex is God. Myth number 2, sex is gross. Here's the reality. This is what God really says. Sex is a gift. That's the reality. It's not God. It's not gross. It's actually a gift, and it's not just a gift for humans to enjoy whenever, wherever. It's actually a really, really good gift. It's a great gift that God gave to humans to enjoy in one context. There's only one basically safe place to enjoy this gift, and it's the context of marriage. That's how God made it. And so, Courtney, why is sex meant for marriage? What's the reason behind that?
Marriage is a commitment that two people make for their entire lives in front of God to say we are becoming one and we are in a relationship together forever. And so I think it was Matthew,
Yep.
Matthew chapter 19 says this. Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate.
So in this passage, Jesus is quoting from the very first book of the Bible. So this is actually an incredibly important passage when it comes to gender, sexuality, marriage. Like this gives some really good clarity on what Christians believe about these topics. And I recognize, maybe we should have said this up front, some of you in this room, maybe you got invited and like, man, good for you. You came on the right night, right? You're like, dear Lord, why did this happen to me?
So sorry.
But maybe you're newer to church. Maybe you're saying, I'm not a follower of Jesus. I don't know about all this. What we're doing tonight, we're just telling you this is what God has to say about this topic. So you might say, okay, well, that's not for me. And obviously you can choose to live that way. But if you're a follower of Jesus, this is what God teaches on these topics. So Jesus is quoting from Genesis 2:24. So he's quoting from the very first book of the Bible. And he's quoting from a section that's about the first man, Adam, and the first woman, Eve, and the first ever marriage that ever happened. And so when Jesus answers this question, he is affirming what God's people had already believed since the very beginning, and he was affirming for all of us even today, 2,000 years later, this is the truth about gender, sexuality, marriage. And so can we go back to verse 4 here? We'll kind of work through it. He says this at the very beginning. He says, haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? So right here off the bat, we see Jesus is affirming that humans were created either male or female, that there's two genders, male and female. Verse 5, he goes on to say, and it's for this reason a man will leave his father and be united with his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And so what does this affirm for us? That marriage, so this is the picture of marriage. Leave your father, be united with your wife. Marriage is meant for one man and one woman for one lifetime. That's what he gets into in the next verse, verse 6. He says, so that they are no longer two, but they're one flesh. That's actually the picture of sex. So when two people get married and sex happens, there is obviously physically there is this connection that happens, but it's actually deeper than that. There is a spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical connection that happens between two people. And look what he says here at the very end. Therefore, what God has joined together. Okay, just to make sure we're all awake here, read the end of this with me. He says, therefore, what God has joined together, read this with me, let no one separate. Right? So marriage is meant to be, in God's plan, it is a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman. And it's not something that's meant to be taken flippantly. It's not something that's meant to be taken as something, hey, if I marry the wrong person, I just kind of get out of it. Now, there are biblical reasons for someone to end a marriage, but God's intent, God's plan is that marriage is a lifelong ordeal. That when you stand up on the altar with someone and say, hey, till death do us part, that you actually mean that. And when you believe that, when you understand that about marriage, it actually really changes the way that we view sex. That one lifetime thing is super, super important. Can you talk a little bit about why that is?
So like Billy said at the end, it says, therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate. You have probably heard that at weddings before, if you have been. And it's because that's God's best for you. Mm-hmm. That's what God wants for you. He created sex as a gift for one man and one woman to share within that covenant called marriage. And he did this is because it's powerful. I know, like, it is, like Billy said, it's a connection point. and it is it ties two people together.
Yeah. So think about this really clearly. Like, why would God reserve sex for marriage? Well, marriage is meant to be for a lifetime. So that means in God's perfect plan, like his ideal would be that you would have one sexual partner in your lifetime if you're going to get married. If God allows you to get married, that you would have one sexual partner, and that's it. And think about, if this is a lifelong thing, how beautiful that is. And then also think about if you have multiple partners and then maybe you get married someday. Think about the implications of that as well when I kind of give you these 3 reasons that God created sex. And this is probably going to be the weirdest part, so we're going to get through this really quickly, but I'm just going to give this to you. This is just straight up, this is the truth. Why does sex exist? The first reason, this is really obvious. Like if you go to science class, you understand this. Sex exists, first reason, or one of the reasons is for reproduction, right? That's like obvious, okay? That's where babies come from.
You got here.
Swans do not deliver babies.
Storks.
Storks?
Storks.
Oh, dude,
Not
I had my myths mixed up. Okay. Swans
No.
deliver baby swans.
Storks
I'll keep
bring
moving.
them
I'll
in
keep
a little bag and drop them off.
Yes, okay, that's not how babies are made, okay? So babies are made through sex. That happens in the animal kingdom, okay? Like, this is not something exclusive to humans, but if you want to be a parent someday, you're going to have to figure this thing out, okay? So that's a part of the process. We have a kid. We figured it out, okay? So it all worked out. Second reason, this is the weirdest one, but we'll get right through it really quick. Sex exists for enjoyment, okay? So this might be weird for you to understand. If you're in that mindset, oh, sex is gross. No, it's not, actually. Sex is good. It's meant for enjoyment. It is meant to be fun. It's meant to be a good time. And especially when you get to enjoy that with your lifelong partner, called a husband or a wife, man, it's like the best thing in the world. That's how God created it. That's the vision for you of, okay, waiting for marriage. Like, it's not something that's just boring and dull or whatever. No, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be really enjoyable. That's part of why I'm choosing to reserve for this person. And then finally, the third reason is this. Sex exists for connection. Sex exists. God created it to connect two people together. When two people enter into that relationship, it is an inseparable connection that happens. Whether it's physical, whether it's going all the way, or whether it's a little bit of the way, whether it's over a screen or in person, there is a deep connection that happens when two people engage in any kind of sexual activity that cannot be undone.
Which is why God says that it's supposed to happen in marriage, because you're with that person your entire life. I know for us, like, divorce is not God's intention, like you said, and it's not an option for us, because we believe that God created marriage to be forever. And I just like you a lot, you know?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so his intention is for people to make that commitment for life. Therefore, his intention is that sex only happens in that commitment that is for life.
Yeah. And I think what you said about us, like, divorce not being an option. So, like, we don't have a perfect marriage,
No.
right? Like, just a week ago, we had, like, a knockout, drag-out fight.
I'm a yeller.
Oh, yeah. She's a yeller. It was intense. We were, like, at each other's necks. We were fighting, and
Which is normal.
yeah, right.
I don't, like, I feel like some people, like, should we figure it out a little bit more? Maybe. Do I need to yell? No. But.
Please no. Yeah, please no.
But fighting is, like, disagreeing, and it's okay. Like, it shouldn't be, like, you need to come back from it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had to apologize.
Yes.
We had to be, mature enough to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Right.
Not, I'm sorry, but da-da-da. But no, hey, I was sorry. That's my mistake. I make a lot. But we made a decision before we got married. So before we entered into this relationship permanently, where we said, if we're going to do this thing, it's not temporary, it's for life. And that reframes our entire view of our relationship, because that's not even an option for us. Right. And obviously, some people enter into that relationship and someone betrays them and something tragic happens over us. Like, obviously, things like that could happen, but we've made this choice. We're going to honor God with our lives. We're going to try to honor each other. And we're saying we're not allowing that to be a part of our vocabulary. So that changes the way that you even think about sex then, because she is not a one-night stand, right? You're not like
Here
a
forever.
Tinder date. I don't have Tinder, okay? But like, if
You
I
didn't-
did,
you
you would
didn't
not be a
swipe.
Tinder date. Like,
No.
she's my lifelong partner. There's nobody else but her my entire life. And that changes the way that we view sex. We can freely enjoy this gift because we've made that commitment to one another. So this is really cool. How many of you are into science? Like, you're really into science, biology, stuff like that? Like, you're just want to be a scientist, something like that? So this is not just a biblical truth. This is actually a scientific truth. So Harvard Health, I just looked up this article. It's from the last 12 months. This is a very, very recent article. Harvard Health had an article about this hormone called, I think it's oxytocin. Oxytocin. Okay, anyone know what that is? Anyone heard of that before? A couple of people have. So oxytocin, here's what Harvard Health says, but this is a secular organization talking about something about our bodies. They said this. They said, our bodies produce oxytocin when we're excited by our sexual partner and when we fall in love. That's why it's earned the nicknames the love hormone or the cuddle hormone. Just the simple act of touch seems to boost oxytocin release. Giving someone a massage, cuddling, giving someone a hug, or making love leads to higher levels of this hormone and a greater sense of well-being. So isn't this crazy? The way that God created our bodies was so that when we would engage in sexual activity with someone, a hormone would get released it's called the bonding hormone, the love hormone, the cuddle hormone, that would actually make us not just physically, but like literally chemically be connected to a person. That's how God created us. Doesn't that help you see a little bit of the why behind why pastors and leaders would say, hey, this is so important that you would choose from this day forward to say, I'm going to save this thing for marriage. God literally created your body to bond with a person. It's not just a one-night stand. You can't just have a fling. You can't just have a late-night Snapchat back and forth and then it's over with. You physically, chemically bond with a person when you engage in that kind of activity. And so God created us this way, and that's why we're saying, hey, we've got to really take this thing pretty seriously. It's kind of the picture of, like, we like to make Liam eggs in the morning. It's kind of the picture of, like, scrambling eggs, right?
You can't, when you mix two things together, there is no separating them. So when you scramble two eggs together, you're not going to pull those eggs back apart. When you make chocolate milk out of Hershey syrup, you cannot pull the two things back apart. Once they are, you learn that in science class too, believe it or not. I used to teach it. But like, you cannot unmix two things that have been mixed together. So when you have sex outside of marriage, there is no separating that. Like, it is, that's what it is.
Right. You can't unone what God has made one.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So when sex happens outside of marriage, you are acting like a married person with someone that's not your spouse. And God created sex to make two one. And you cannot un-one what God has made one. And so this standard is so high for us to say, I'm going to try to protect this. I'm going to fight to preserve this not something gross, not something I got to stay away from. No, it's something I get to enjoy, but it is a gift. Like, I get to offer this gift to my spouse someday and say, hey, it doesn't matter what's in your past from whatever happened last night or this morning, but moving forward, like, I can offer to my spouse, there was a moment in life that I made a choice that I was going to save this gift for you. And I've done everything I can. Maybe I haven't been perfect, but I have fought to pursue purity because I wanted to honor God and I wanted to give you this gift someday. Like, I wanted this to be special, not just normal. I heard this illustration that, like, back in the time when, like, I'm trying to think what era it would have been. This is not in the notes, so you're probably wondering, what am I saying here? That there was this time, let's say back in England, when, like, let's say like when Christopher Columbus, when did he sail the ocean blue?
1492.
Whatever. Okay, so it's like around that time, like when colonizing was happening. Okay, so during that time, this is a true story. You should look this up. Pineapples were a very, very rare fruit. It was a really, really unique thing for you to own a pineapple. So people, look this up, okay? People, like really, really rich people, would have parties, and they would display their pineapple, like on a table, like on a platter or something like that. And they would...
Like the one that's sitting on my kitchen counter right now?
Well, see, that's the point, okay? So it was very, very rare. You'd go to a party, and you'd be like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. This person owns a pineapple. It was so special to have that. And now as time has progressed, and I guess we've got like, food supply lines or whatever, like we just went to Walmart the other day and we bought a pineapple.
Bought a pineapple.
It has become so commonplace to own a pineapple that if you came into our house and you saw a pineapple on our counter, you'd be like, that's no big deal. That's not special at all. This is like a super weird analogy here, but like make the connection there to sex. Like it's something that should be special. It's something that should be unique. Something should be that like, oh man, I reserved this for this occasion, for this person, but instead it's just commonplace. Like you could go like, you could go find whatever you want online. You could find somebody who's interested in you, whatever it is. You could make it totally common, normal, and not special at all. That's not God's plan for your life at all. He wants you to choose from this day forward to say, I'm going to make this really, really special, unique. I'm going to reserve this for this person. So for the sake of our time, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. You think that's okay?
Yep.
So we talked about how sex is not God. It's not gross. It's a gift. And in Genesis 2:25, I think you guys can skip ahead a couple verses here. We read that the very beginning, it's the first marriage. Adam and his wife, this is after the two became one. Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. So imagine like, you ever do public speaking and someone says, imagine the whole crowd's in their underwear or whatever. That'd be a pretty shameful scenario, right? It's like super, super weird. No. Keep the last song. Thank you. So I totally lost my train of thought here. So that's a shameful thing, this idea of being naked or unclothed or whatever. But in marriage, shame is eliminated from the equation. So think about the things, the feelings you maybe experience when it comes to sex or sexuality, or maybe because of something you've done, and it's guilt, it's shame, it's disgust, I feel dirty. Well, when you choose to go God's way, the result is actually no shame. That this is a gift freely enjoyed in marriage, and we don't have to worry about, all those other awkward things that come along with it, because we've made that commitment to each other for life, and we know each other, that we're following God, we're committed to each other, we love each other. That totally changes the equation. So kind of a bottom line for you guys tonight. Do you want to give them that?
I'm sorry, I'm a little lost in our notes.
I know, I skipped ahead.
You did.
Yeah, no.
Sorry,
no,
guys.
You're
Okay.
good.
Yes. So bottom line for tonight is that. Sorry.
You're good. You're good. It's back on this
threw me
page.
off.
It's back on that
Why don't
page.
you
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead
I'm gonna
and
go
do
ahead and
it?
do it.
You threw me off.
Yeah, you can take this one
Sorry,
back, though.
guys.
So we said sex is not God. It's not gross. The bottom line is this. This is like your compelling why. Why would I choose to live God's way? Why would I choose to commit to this thing? The whole world says everybody's doing it, whatever it may be. Why would I commit to going God's way? This is the compelling why. This is like the big idea. It's because purity now paves the way for intimacy later. The choice to pursue purity today is like you're paving the road for intimacy with your potential spouse someday, for experiencing God's gift to its fullest extent and everything that comes along with it. You get to know that that's ahead of you if God allows you to get married someday when you choose to pursue purity today. So purity now paves the way for intimacy later. But here's what some people might be wondering as we're going to kind of wrap up and close things out tonight. You might be wondering, what if I've already gone too far? Billy, that sounds good. Courtney, that sounds good. But what if I've already made that mistake? I've already sinned in this area. I've already given that gift away. What do I do now? Well, if that's you, if you've already messed up, if you've already made a mistake, you've already given it away, there's some bad news and then there's some really good news. And the bad news first is that sex leaves scars. There's no way to engage in sexual activity without giving a part of yourself away, and you're probably going to carry a part of someone else with you. Sex leaves scars. It's going to leave you hurt. It's going to leave you messed up. And when a relationship that has sex in it ends, man, it's going to feel like the worst thing in the world because that connection happened, that marriage happened without the actual act of marriage. And so that's the bad news, that there's some consequences physically and emotionally and spiritually that we're going to experience when we mess up in this area. But here's the good news. The good news is this. It's that failure is not final. So you're not defined by your mistakes. You're not defined by your failures. You can actually, from this day forward, you can turn to God. You can make different decisions. You can say, I'm going to live differently. I'm going to make new choices. And when you do that, when you confess your sin to God, when you repent, you turn back towards God, man, that changes your entire story. Your entire story could be changed tonight, moving forward, if you decide to confess, to turn away, and to start pursuing purity right here, right now. You might got to break up with a boyfriend today before you leave this place. You might need to break up with a girlfriend before you leave this place. You might need to delete some apps. You might need to confess something to a leader. But if from this day forward you say, you know what, I'm going to choose to live differently, failure is not final. You're not defined by what you've done. You're defined by who God says you are. And God says, if you're in Jesus, that you are a loved son of God. You're a loved daughter of God. You are chosen by God. He has great plans for your life. And all you've got to do is say, you know what, I'm turning away and I'm turning towards him. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is the prodigal son. So we're going to close out with. This son runs away from his father. He takes the inheritance. He lives this wild life, like spends the money on women, on drugs, on alcohol, and he finds himself, he probably had a lot of fun on the way. And maybe that's your story too. You say, man, I did something that felt really, really fun. I enjoyed it. But now what I'm stuck with is a bunch of guilt and shame, and I feel dirty and broken. And that's where this guy was. He was literally living in a pig pen, and he was just hoping to get some food from the pigs. That's how bad his life was. And so he decided, you know what? I'm going to go back to my father. I'm going to run back to the father. I'm going to run back to him, and I'm going to see if my daddy will take me back after all these things I've done wrong. And so as he's getting ready to run back, he like prepares this whole speech. He's going to tell his dad how wrong he was, his father how wrong he was. And he gets his whole speech ready. And then he goes ready to start heading back to his father. And here's what happens. It's in the book of Luke, chapter 15. Courtney's going to read it for us.
But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Then said to him, the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. And this is the key part. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate.
Love this idea that the moment that this son, this sinful son that had betrayed his father, he had done something so wrong, the moment that he turned back towards his dad became a sprinter. His dad ran off a long distance and he met his son right where he was at. And that's the picture of God to you and I, that when we've sinned, when we've fallen short, the moment we turn back towards God, he's not gonna, have you ever snuck into your house and your parents were up waiting for you? That happened to me before. Have you ever walked in your house and your parents knew you did something wrong and maybe they had their arms crossed and their toe was tapping and you're like, I'm about to get it tonight from my parents. They are going to give me a piece of their mind. And your parents are good parents too. But God does not have his arms crossed at you. He's not angry at you. He's not looking at you with disgust. When you turn back towards God, he's like the father in the story. He runs to meet you when you run to him. And he hugs you and he lifts you up and he restores you. He redeems your life. He redeems your story. That can be true for you when you choose to run back to God. And so we're going to take a moment to respond as the band comes up, gets ready to lead us in a closing song. I always invite you to close your eyes for a moment, maybe bow your heads and just have a quick moment between us and God. Maybe tonight for you, you're hearing this story and hearing these truths and you're thinking, this all sounds amazing. This sounds great. I want to have a part of this in my life, but I do not even know God. I don't even know Jesus. And you're realizing, man, you need a fresh start, a brand new start in your life. If that's you tonight, and you just want to learn more about what it means to follow Jesus and to know him, while everyone else's eyes are closed, still looking down, we're going to put a number up on the screen. You can just look up real quick. Don't worry about the person next to you. If that's you, if you need a fresh start with Jesus, you can text this word fresh start to our phone number. Let us know, because we want to talk to you. We want to encourage you tonight to get to know Jesus, start a relationship with him that'll change your life forever. And maybe tonight you're already a follower of Jesus and you're in that spot. You're the prodigal son. You're the prodigal daughter. You have ran too far away. You've been in the mud. You've been in the dirt. You feel dirty. You feel broken because of things in your life. God created this gift for you to enjoy in a certain context, and you've abused that. You've taken advantage of it, and you're realizing now, man, I've got to make a change today. If that's you, we're about to sing a song that's really about this idea of running back towards God. If that's you, I want to invite you in these next moments to fully surrender to God, to confess. Just in your own heart, you can say something like to God. You can say, God, I have messed up. I've made mistakes, and I need to change. And from this day forward, help me to pursue you and to pursue purity, because I need a change in my life. And if that's you tonight, you're a follower of Jesus, and that's the spot you're in, before you leave, I want you to talk to a leader and just say, hey, I've got to let you know about some stuff going on in my life. I need your help. Can you help me to follow God in this area? And your leader's going to help you because we love you, because we care about you. God loves you. God has an awesome plan for your life, and he can redeem your story no matter what's in it so far. Let's pray. God, thank you for this night. Thanks for your grace to us in forgiving us and restoring us and giving us a fresh start when we come back to you. God, I pray that you would set some people free tonight from some of the things that are in their past and the struggles they're facing. Help us to help each other, to be honest with each other, to love each other in that way. And God, help us to have the right view on this issue, on this topic, so that we can experience really the great plan that you have for our lives. Thank you for Jesus. We pray it all in his name. Amen.